lies on ice, where vision meets clarity and action. This podcast explores perspectives, amplifies voices, and transforms how we see the world. Join us to connect, reflect, and ignite empathy.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into a fascinating story. It's all about how activists put the squeeze on the financing of private prison companies. And we're going to zoom in particularly on GEO Group.
That's right.
We've got a couple of key sources. First, one called Funding Oppression, Targeting Private Prison Finance. It gives a really kind of narrative feel for the strategies and, what worked.
The boots on the ground view, almost.
Exactly. And then second, we have Exposing GEO Group's Financial Fault Lines. This one's more, let's say, analytical.
Yeah, much more evidence-based. It digs into the numbers, the specific tactics, the financial structures.
So our mission today is to figure out how these activists actually identified the financial weak spots of companies like GEO, and then how they use that information to really challenge the industry's funding streams.
It's a different kind of activism than maybe we typically think about.
Right. Have you ever wondered how social movements actually make, tangible change happen? This is a great case study. Activists went beyond just marching, They targeted the money.
The financial plumbing, basically.
Yeah. Get ready for some maybe surprising links between, say, your bank and some pretty big social issues.
What strikes me here is just how sophisticated this approach was. We often see protests aimed at a company's operations, right? Like at the prison gates.
Sure.
But this shows how understanding corporate finance itself can be a really powerful lever for change. The sources show they didn't just object to private prisons, they went after their ability to borrow money, to access capital.
That makes sense. Money is the oxygen, as they say.
Pretty much. You cut that off or at least restrict it, and it gets harder to operate.
So let's break that down. Where does a company like GEO Group actually get its money? It's not just government contracts, is it?
No, not entirely. Government contracts are obviously huge. That's their main revenue. But our sources make it really clear they also lean heavily on external financing. Think loans, lines of credit, issuing bonds.
Okay. And there was this interesting wrinkle with the REIT structure, right? Real Estate Investment Trust.
Yes. That's a really crucial piece of the puzzle. From 2013 to 2020, GEO was a REIT.
And the key thing about being a REIT is
they had to pay out most of their taxable income as dividends, legally required something like 90% or more.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah, so think about what that does if you're paying out almost all your profits.
You don't have much left over for, anything else. Paying debt,
Yeah,
running the business.
exactly. It makes you even more reliant on borrowing money externally, less cash retained.
Ah, okay. So that created a vulnerability.
A big one. They became dependent on this relatively small group of banks and financial institutions willing to lend to them, a concentrated pool of lenders.
And that became the target, the weak point the activists found.
Precisely. It shows how a company's own chosen financial structure can sometimes create these unexpected pressures.
So activists identified these, let's call them choke points, as the sources suggest.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They saw that disrupting this flow of capital, hitting those choke points, could be incredibly effective. Much more than just protesting, maybe.
So the game plan focused on banks and investors.
The two main sources of that external capital, yeah. Banks providing loans and credit, and institutional investors holding their stock and bonds.
Okay, but how did they even know which banks or investors were involved? That seems like inside information.
Well, not necessarily inside, but you have to know where to look. The analysis points directly to GEO Group's own public filings with the SEC.
Ah, the filings for investors.
Exactly. The 10Ks, the 10Qs, prospectuses when they issue debt or stock. Companies have to disclose their major credit agreements, who the lenders